What if I told you that by 2:28 in the morning, her heart had already stopped, and no one knew? An 84-year-old woman vanishes from her home. Blood stains the front porch. A masked man stands at her door in the dark. Her pacemaker goes silent. Hours later, ransom notes appear. $6 million in Bitcoin. Warnings about international consequences. Media chaos. And nearly a month later, no arrest, no proof of life, no confirmed suspect. So here's the real question. Was this ever a kidnapping at all? And if you're the kind of person who believes the most important details are usually the ones buried beneath the loudest headlines, take a second to subscribe and leave a like. It tells YouTube these deeper investigations matter, and it helps keep cases like this in the light. Because once you look past the surface of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, the story becomes far more unsettling. In the early hours of February 1st, 2026, Nancy Guthrie disappeared from her Tucson, Arizona home. She was 84 years old, lived alone, had limited mobility, and relied on daily heart medication. Her phone was left behind. Her wallet was left behind. Her medication was left behind. Data from her pacemaker shows it stopped transmitting at exactly 2:28 a.m. Doorbell footage captured a masked man wearing a Walmart backpack and a holstered gun. Instead of destroying the camera, he covered it with a plant from the yard. He appeared to knock or ring the bell, as if he wanted Nancy to come to the door voluntarily. Blood confirmed to be hers was found on the porch and down the driveway. After that, the trail ends. The case was immediately framed as a kidnapping for ransom. 3 ransom notes surfaced, not sent to the family but to media outlets, including TMZ and local Tucson news stations. The demand was staggering, $6 million in Bitcoin. Weeks later, a 4th anonymous email claimed Nancy had been seen south of the border and requested $50,000 in cryptocurrency for information. But something about this narrative doesn't align with traditional ransom behavior. There has been no proof of life, no sustained negotiation, and no attempt to collect either the ransom or the $1 million reward now being offered. Historically, kidnappings for ransom follow a clear pattern: establish leverage, confirm the victim is alive, maintain communication. None of that has happened here, which forces an uncomfortable possibility into the conversation that this was never about collecting money at all. Several former investigators have suggested that if no one is trying to collect the ransom and no one is stepping forward for the reward, this may not be an active kidnapping, but something already concluded. A ransom narrative creates confusion. It fragments investigative focus, introduces international complications, and floods tip lines with noise. It buys time. And if someone needed time to destroy evidence, to shift suspicion, or to construct an alternative storyline, fabricating a ransom scenario would be an effective way to do it. Then there is the international angle. At 4:45 a.m., just over 2 hours after Nancy's pacemaker stopped transmitting, a private jet departed Tucson International Airport, bound for Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. The ransom notes warned authorities to be prepared to go international. An anonymous message claimed she had been taken across the border. Tucson sits roughly 60 miles north of Mexico. While cartel-related kidnappings are historically rare within the United States, they are well documented just across the border. Officials insist there is no evidence Nancy crossed into Mexico, yet the timing of that flight has never been fully explained publicly. And $6 million in Bitcoin suggests research, planning, and financial targeting. Combined with reports that Nancy's home may have been surveilled in the days before her disappearance, this does not look impulsive. It looks intentional. But perhaps the most chilling theory is also the most personal. The masked man did not behave like a trained professional. He didn't disable the camera system entirely. He covered it. He knocked, rather than forcing entry. He wore gloves so thick that some experts question whether he could have effectively used the weapon he carried. That doesn't resemble tactical expertise. It resembles performance. Someone acting the part of a kidnapper. Someone afraid of being recognized. Blood was found on the porch and driveway, but authorities have been notably quiet about significant blood evidence inside the home. That silence has fueled speculation that Nancy may have opened the door willingly, possibly recognizing the person outside. A former FBI agent suggested investigators may be examining someone close to her, a caretaker, an acquaintance, someone familiar with her daily routine. The window between 1:47 a.m. and 2:28 a.m. is narrow, too precise for coincidence, some argue, but entirely logical for someone who knew exactly when to come. There are also troubling questions about the investigation itself. Reports indicate the crime scene was released after roughly 20 hours. DNA evidence was reportedly sent to a private lab rather than immediately processed through federal facilities. Allegations of tension between local authorities and the FBI have surfaced. In high-profile cases, pressure can distort judgment. Political attention, non-stop media coverage, and tens of thousands of public tips can cause early theories to harden into dominant narratives. Researchers who study wrongful convictions describe tunnel vision as a common investigative hazard, where evidence supporting a working theory is amplified while contradictory information is minimized. In 2024, nearly half of violent crimes in the United States went unsolved. Time is critical in adult abduction cases, and forensic experts warn that survival probabilities decline sharply after the first 48 hours. Nancy has now been missing for weeks. And then there is the simplest explanation, one that often hides behind complexity. A burglary gone wrong. A criminal with a history who panicked. Someone who never intended for events to escalate, but once they did, chose concealment over confession. A person in that position would have every reason to remain silent, even with $1 million reward on the table. Fear of life imprisonment can outweigh financial temptation. 5 theories, 5 possible paths. Only one reflects the truth. Was this a carefully constructed ransom scheme? A staged narrative masking a murder, an international operation, a personal grievance carried out by someone familiar, or a tragic escalation of something far less sophisticated? The most dangerous aspect of this case may not be what happened in the early hours of February 1st, but what happens when a single narrative becomes so dominant that alternative explanations struggle to be heard. Because in investigations like this, the loudest story is not always the correct one. Until we know what truly happened to Nancy Guthrie, every possibility remains open.